Yeah, boy, you we done. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Paul.
And I'm Amaral.
And this is the never-ending conversation.
Yeah.
That was close.
It was good enough, right? That's one thing my buddy and I would talk about is how people can do things together. Like kind of naturally almost. like people hunting in groups or musicians working together and like finding some way to like play together in time.
You always get on the same wavelength.
Yeah, it's
a specific task.
Yeah, or like really good dancers. How like I don't know, like how you can feel things when you do things with people, or like working in a team. Because I know you work. Well, I don't want to say too much about your personal life because I try to keep people and their lives personal before I say anything. But like I'm sure in like what you do is very technical. I'm sure you've worked with a team where you're like that works smoothly.
Well, yeah, there's always certain people that, especially that understand the process and they're able to think the same 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you're thinking.
Right.
That like I don't have to say, yo, go do this while I'm doing this, or like I'm going to go do this while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it makes things so much easier.
It's a great thing to have like people who. That's another thing we were talking about. So one of the things I think that's happening in the never-ending conversation is like some of the last conversation rolls back into the next one. We're talking about basically the working in teams and creating a tight team network while noticing how amazing it is when people can work together in that kind of way. Which actually, I guess we could bring to one of the main things we wanted to talk about with you today was hunting and the fact that you helped me today sight in my rifle.
It's fun times.
Yeah, man, and it also means a lot to me too because I don't know if you noticed, but I was a vegetarian for like 3 years.
I did not know that.
Straight, yeah. From one opposite side of the spectrum to the next. Like we're talking like I'm not eating meat to like I'm gonna hunt my first deer this year.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't have to hunt for food nowadays. You just don't. But it's a respect thing. Like I respect what this animal is. I believe its purpose is here to feed me. I just think it's wild animals like that. That's their purpose, is to feed humans. So when you have that respect level for something like that, you do put the time in to make sure that your gun's sighted in, that you got the correct equipment so that it can be a clean, ethical kill, because you don't want it to suffer. You're not doing this just for the joy of killing something.
Right. That's weird. If you were to do that.
There are people like that.
There are. I think that's kind of strange.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
But
that's me putting it lightly.
But there's a respect there because it is a living, breathing thing. And when you're sitting there and that split second before you decide to pull the trigger, it has no idea that it's about to die. It's a very humbling experience, as exhilarating as it is. Once you step away from the immediate aspect of what you just did and realize that this living thing just was sacrificed for me, that's pretty significant. So I understand sometimes where super hardcore vegetarians and animal rights and stuff like that, I get where they're coming from. But the main purpose, in my belief, is they're here to feed us. Now, you don't want to be a cruel jerk about it, but we are the top of the food chain for a reason.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of, like, my journey into, I guess, vegetarianism, I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, was more or less, honestly, like, ever since I was growing up, I never, I guess, craved meat, or from time to time I would have like a really great piece of meat, but it was never something that I was just, honestly, like my whole entire life, I just didn't really like eating. It was eating always got in the way of whatever I was doing. Like I would focus on what I was doing so much, and then I would be like, I'm hungry, I should go eat, but it's like, but I'm doing something right now. So I would get really wrapped up on like playing guitar or stuff like that, or doing magic tricks.
Super focused on one.
Yeah. And then so eating was always like this thing that just kind of got in the way for me. But like as I got older and started realizing, like what I eat and what I was putting in my body, especially like the time I spent in the military was really, really important to how I was functioning. And I guess I just kind of like took a break from it because I didn't really know, because there was like a lot of like, well, what is going on with animals? Are they treated humanely? And I just didn't know. And I had a friend of mine who he's still a vegetarian. He was a big influence. I was like, well, I don't know. So why don't I just stop for a while and see how my body does without meat. And I did survive, but it definitely wasn't as easy.
It's a crucial part. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that your body needs, and there's supplements and stuff, but synthetic is never the same as natural.
Dude, yeah. So this is like one of the things that I started getting into as I started venturing further and further into like vegetarianism and you know, even dabbled with like veganism. It's like, dude, it just feels like my body isn't being satisfied. And like my performance, mental and physical, was just like going down. And then when I started introducing meat back into my diet, I was feeling the benefits of that. I think kind of culturally we've disconnected from like how we are supposed to interact with an animal. And how was I able for so long in my life able to eat meat without being able to kill it and to realize where it came from, to understand it, to give it the respect, you know?
Yeah, and I have several friends that are in the farming aspect or farming industry. There is a lot of inhumane treatment for a lot of things, because when you're that scale, you don't see them as animals, you see them as profit.
Yeah. And
everyone's got to make a living, but when you're hunting natural food like that, whether it be turkey or deer or bear, I mean, whatever, you don't have any of the hormones or antibiotics or any of that other stuff that they pump in this stuff so that their profits don't dip, and they grow these huge birds in a short amount of time. So it's still meat, but it's not your grocery store meat. It's completely clean, and venison in particular is a very, very lean meat. So it's have you had venison?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, that's actually kind of what, because as I moved up here and became in a relationship with Jennifer, Clyde was actually giving me some deer meat, and so that was kind of like where I was like, well, this wasn't like, I mean, this was like hunted, and I ate it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And it kind of started tipping my scale and to like, well, how am I able to be a human being and not integrate myself into, like you're saying, there's a life cycle here. I'm not like the natural process. We are a part of it too. We're not separate. Like food and life does not come from the shelves of Walmart. It comes from someplace else that Walmart takes from and puts it on their shelves, you know?
Well, just like you said, there's a cycle. I mean, before we were industrialized, when you died, you were put in the ground, decomposed. You had plants. Those animals ate the plants, and you just it is a cycle. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, that I feel like once you kind of separate yourself from, and what I think hunters are actually, well, for the most part, let's say like ethically trained and like conscious hunters, they integrate themselves back into that cycle, and then there is that respect and the understanding that you get from being a part of that, and there is a humility, dude. And like as I've been like today, we were sighting in the rifle today, and for me that was really, really important. Again, thanks for your help. Awesome, dude.
Was because I wanted to make sure that if I do make that decision, that deer doesn't suffer. That's the reason why I bought an expensive scope and rifle, is because this is my instrument, and I want to make sure that do unto others as you want done to you. If something was like, well, dude, I need to eat you to survive, I'd be like, all right, well, just do what you got to do, but do it quickly.
Make it quickly.
Yeah. You know, and I want to give the respect that I would want for myself as well. I don't want nobody to just kill me.
Like the old Indian death of 1,000 knives cuts.
What is that?
Oh, back in Indian times, and I don't know how true this is. I used to watch a lot of Westerns with my dad. They'd tie you to a huge pole, and they just run by you one at a time and just slice you with a knife till you died.
That's horrible.
The death of 1,000 knives.
I would rather go with a good solid shot to my heart or to my lungs.
With as Bobby Boucher would say, medulla oblongata.
This is one thing I've been wondering about too. Like I know you'd want to shoot for like the heart or lungs because you have a higher chance of hitting, and it's an ethical kill. But I feel like wouldn't the most ethical kill be like a headshot though, right?
Yes and no. It would incapacitate them instantly. The part that's the no is they're not sitting still.
Right.
So they're not going to be like that Tannerite was sitting out there just letting you catch your breath or whatever. They're constantly on 100% alert. So they're moving their heads, they're looking, their ears are moving. So you're not going to, very rarely are you going to get a clean shot at their head.
Right.
So there's so many times where I've seen pictures where deers have had their jaw shot off because someone tried a headshot.
Oh man!
And they can't eat. I mean, so they literally just die of starvation. So the ethical part comes in. Yeah, you could shoot for their head, and if you're like a super duper sniper, I mean, if you want to try that, that's fine. But ethically speaking, you want to one shot as quickly as possible, right. And you shoot them in the pump house, and they generally don't go very far.
Right. Yeah, I haven't really told a lot of people that I've been planning on going hunting because I know some people are gonna be like, "What?" But I don't think a lot of people would see me doing this. But I think it's, I think a lot of our humanity has been taken away from us. Like the integration we have within like the beautiful cycle of what Earth is has been kind of gated by corporations, and they take it and they honestly they whore it out and they put it on their shelves for us, and they don't give us what we actually need. And I think that's one of the reasons why like cancers and all our illnesses are, you know, running rampant. This is my speculation. I mean, I think there is a lot of evidence that supports it, but
well, like we went back to the whole antibiotics and the hormones and everything.
Right.
Everyone's going to have a study out there that says whatever they want it to say.
Or yes.
And so the companies that own these processing plants or the growth houses or whatever, they're going to say, well, the hormones don't do anything, the antibiotics don't do anything. Well, how can you put something in their blood, it circulates the whole body, and then we consume that, and you say it doesn't affect our blood, circulate our whole body?
Yeah.
I've eaten chicken and steak all my life. I mean, doesn't mean that I won't stop, but there's got to be some sort of recognition of you put profits over
people.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a powerful statement right there, dude. Profits over people. Like that's, but essentially that's what every corporation's agenda really is.
And that's part of the reasons why hunters are so passionate about conservation, because hunters are the number one funding of conservation, and people don't understand that.
Yes, I actually just learned this recently, and dude, this is like really, really important. Like we've actually helped wildlife numbers grow because hunters do provide funding for that stuff.
Yeah, and because you have to be honest, people are always going to be top priority as far as health and wellness and places to live and stuff like that. So the places where animals can live and survive are shrinking. Yeah. There's not as many. So you do have the management areas and stuff like that, but the only way to keep a healthy herd is you have to manage the numbers, and that's through hunting. So not only do hunters help manage so they don't overeat what they got and then they starve to death, but the money they pay for licenses and guns and ammo go directly towards funding programs to keep these animals established.
Right.
And the antis, as I like to call them, they don't either want to see that or they don't believe it's true. But without hunters, there would not be any deer. There would sure not be any turkeys around here, other than farm raised turkeys, because they were almost extinct, I believe, in the whole U.S. But through conservation efforts, they're all over the place.
Right. And that's one thing I would think of. I think if there's anybody who is watching, which I don't think, like I said, anybody who watches this, like we pretty much know them, and everybody's like, I know there's probably a few friends of mine right now. They're like, all right, yeah, I'm really.
Let's get him.
no. They're like, they really want to hear what you have to say, because like, as me and a few other of my friends were city boys, dude, come from cities, and we're just, I think, feeling the genuine disconnect that we've been taught from what nature naturally provides to us. And I think we all also know that there are consequences to eating farm-raised food. When these corporations are looking, or at these bodies that generate this food and this product, I guess you could call it. I don't know. There's a good saying, nullius in verba, which is Latin and means never upon words, which means essentially you must see it for yourself. And that's kind of like what I started doing with my life, and that's why I wanted to start hunting, was because I don't know what they're doing. I don't know those companies. I don't know what could be happening. So I wanted to start taking control over things in my own life and what I eat and what I put in my body. And hunting was one of the main answers. It's like, well, if everybody was able to do that, and if everybody understood what was happening more, like why hunters know what's important with land, maybe the world would be a better place.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's one of those things though where it's very hard to get. It's an expensive thing. I mean,
yes.
You've got to have the equipment, the right equipment. You got the ammunition is expensive.
Yeah, the training's not cheap either. Like
no, you got to buy a license every year, but then you got to have a place to go too.
Yep.
And especially in areas like this, those are become available few and far between. Just because everyone does it here. So you either got to join some sort of club or find a private lease, but you're looking at $800 to $1,200 a year.
Yeah.
It takes and that's why I say it's a hobby, but it's not a hobby. You got to be pretty. If you're gonna do it, you got to do it right, and that's gonna take some money and some patience and stuff. Got to start somewhere, though.
Yeah. Dude, like I said, last year I was going to try and start hunting, but I just couldn't get around to it because it's complex, dude. I mean, my rifle system, my platform cost me, I was like, oh, I'm going to buy like a $450 rifle. But at the end of it, it was basically like a $900 system because you got to buy the case, the strap, the scope, all the bells and whistles that like you actually need to like run your weapon. And ammo's not cheap either because that was like $30 for 20 rounds, you know? So, and that's just my rifle. And I still have to take the course. I got to drive tomorrow to go do the training. It took me like a week to knock out the hunter safety course. Like, there's a lot that goes in.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. Yeah. It's good information, though.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah.
I was going to ask, was there anything unexpected, or did you get out of that you didn't think you would?
The safety course I took online. I learned. I thought I just had to learn about whatever weapon I was going to use. I thought that's just all I had to learn. But I actually learned about shotguns, crossbows, obviously like rifles, and archery. And then I learned about like just in rifles was
pump.
No, what's the ones you like actually muskets, muzzle loaders.
Muzzle loaders.
Yeah, I was
there's a season for that.
Yeah, people still hunt with, and there's like super advanced, like intense muzzle loaders. It's like that's a whole other sportsman thing. It's like, I guess you got to have money. You're like, well, I don't want to buy like a $2,000 muzzle loader.
People do it.
But, you know, if you do that, you get to go hunting first. Right before.
Yeah, there's
the seasons for it.
It goes, archery season starts first in September, I think the weekend of the 15th this year. And then I think the second week of October, the last 2 weeks of October, I think are muzzle loader. But you can also use archery.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the first week in November is when it's called general gun. So any legal means of taking an animal you can use from November through the end of January.
And then back to the other things I learned in there was the hunter and how they contribute to conservation. Because back to, well, what's a hunter's agenda? For the most part, they're going to eat that animal.
It's going to be good.
And it's going to be so delicious. Right. But when it comes to like other corporations, what's their agenda? It's usually to make money. And so we are really the only people, for the most part, besides like some activists, that really help and push for conservation. We do a lot for it. And that was another thing that I was like, I never knew that. I never knew that.
Well, because the hunting is what we love to do. And there's varying degrees of that. I mean, people do it just every other weekend. Some people are out there every day. I know guys that'll take off 3 weeks a year because they have leases in like Kentucky or Mississippi or wherever, and they'll go up there 1 week to prep, 1 week for muzzle loading season, and 1 week for general gun season. And then there's some guys that can't afford to do all that, and they'll just go to the management areas that are close by. On the weekends, they're not working. But everyone loves to do it, so they want to keep it around.
Right.
So they don't want to shoot all the deer or not shoot all the deer because they want to be able to go back next year, and they want their kids to be able to do it 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Right. The way, which comes back to what we did in the beginning when you and I said, this is the never-ending conversation together. When you start working with something and it becomes a part of what you're doing, our brains naturally lock in with that. So when you start realizing that this is the food, this is where like life literally comes into my body, you start locking into that, and you have to. If you were to take it all, you're gonna die. You know, and that's one of the things where I think the importance of hunting really exists is like, and I said it before earlier, and life doesn't come off the shelves of Walmart. You know, when we start eating these synthetic things, that even if life supports, or even if like you can live off of that,
doesn't mean it's good for you.
Right. But when that system collapses, if Walmart collapses or whatever was making that synthetic food collapses, then your life system now collapses. And it came back to the thing I was saying earlier of trying to connect beyond the things that I didn't know. Like, what are the things that are timeless? And hunting is one of them. They're as old as humanity, you know? And if hunting is if hunting is something I will never ever be able to do, or it's not an option anymore, that's the end of my life. Like, you know, that's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's literally if there's nothing I can eat, I'm as good as dead. Obviously the world is, that's the end of the world, you know? And so I wanted to get to this. My goal in my life is to get to the source of the deepest things that I can in my life that aren't supported by things that are transient, like a corporation who I don't know why they operate, what's their ethics, what's their purpose. When they might be hiring these scientists to tell us things that, like, I just don't know. I'm not saying that they are doing that. I'm not saying that.
They're not going to tell you whether they are or not.
Won't. Right? Why would they?
Yeah.
Why would they? They've got no reason. I was gonna say, how old were you when you? I guess what
first went hunting?
Well, yeah, your first hunting experience.
It was not as long ago as you would think, because it wasn't something I grew up doing. Like, my dad used to, he had fox dogs, and he would fox hunt over in Jacksonville area.
Okay.
Well, they don't have the land anymore to do that, but that was all before, I was around. So it wasn't something, he wasn't big into hunting. So my grandmother had some land behind her house, like 40 acres of pine trees or something. So my uncle actually took me one day, and that's where I killed my first deer. It was a doe. But then a few years later, what really set it off was one of my best friends, Clint. Shout out to Clint. He's the guy that literally since the day he was born has been in the woods hunting and killing deer and killing turkey. I mean, whatever. This dude has done it all. So he's, I guess, was my mentor in getting into this and explaining the basic principles of this is where you put a tree stand, and this is kind of why. This is when we plant food plots. This is when this is a good time to get in the stand. Just all the little things. Like everybody understands the basic concept of you kill a deer and you shoot it in the heart or lungs for the most part. But there's so much of the minutia that you really don't know unless you either do a lot of research or you ask questions. And I got no problem asking stupid questions all day long. So he was the one that really, really got me where I'm at now. And there comes a point though where it's like, I've learned a lot just by research. Once you have a lot of the stuff under your belt of understanding, you can read articles and watch YouTube videos. YouTube is fantastic for this stuff. I mean, you can learn so much stuff about anything, but it'll tell you, I mean, you can get in depth of wind direction is a big thing because deer are extremely good smellers. They have great nasal receptors. Like, they're 10 times more powerful than a bloodhound.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So a deer will smell you before they'll see or hear you.
Oh, wow.
So you got to pay attention to wind direction. But then you can get even more in depth with thermal levels, where if you're in a place that's got valleys and hills where the hot air is different at the top of the hill than as the bottom, so it affects how your scent carries.
Oh, wow.
And that's way beyond my comprehension of the details of it, but it's one of those things where once you understand how it works, you realize how much more you've got to figure out.
It's a beautiful experience, man. Because it teaches you so much more. It seems like when it reminds me a lot about music. Is that as soon as you start kind of getting interested in it, like I remember in fourth grade I started playing guitar, and it still never ends. Like, I learn more about like how I move my body and why like these little tiny movements of my hands, why they're important and why the right way of approaching things changes everything. It's like the same thing with hunting. It just never seems to stop.
And that's one of my favorite sayings is the more I know about any particular issue, the more I realize I'm an idiot when it comes to this issue. There's so much out there on everything that
there is.
And that's one of the reasons why it excited me to help you do this, is because you got to start somewhere, and I'm not a professional hunter or anything like that. I still consider myself a novice when it comes to this stuff, but when that ability you have to help someone else do something, it not only encourages you when they're happy, but you're able to pass that along, and that makes you happy.
Yeah. Dude, I appreciate your help so much. Like, we sighted that rifle in, and I was like, I can't miss this tannerite. For you guys who don't know, tannerite's a
beautiful thing.
We'll just leave it at that. Look it up. You check it out. It's pretty cool. But tannerite's the thing that we were shooting. I was looking at the tannerite, and I was like, man, I can't mess this up. We had just spent the time sighting in my rifle and everything, and I was like, I just got to hit this. And this was essentially what, in thinking in my head, I took it as serious as I would like a shot with a deer. You know, like if I miss this shot, I don't want to do that.
You're hungry.
Well, I'm hungry, and then what if I knock off its jaw, or and this thing goes beyond and I can't find it and it's out there suffering? Like, that's gonna make me feel even worse, especially for like my first hunt.
And I'll tell you this now, it's gonna happen. You might necessarily be you're gonna shoot there, because I'll just say right now, don't aim for the head.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't think, but don't aim for the head.
Right.
You're gonna lose deer.
Yeah.
And it's a sucky feeling.
Right. And I didn't want that.
And that's part of the process, though,
right,
of the respect. Like, you don't want it to go to waste. But then there's this whole other concept that nothing in nature ever goes to waste.
Yeah.
But I forgot where I was going with that.
Welcome to the never-ending conversation.
Yeah, I know, right?
We've all done it so far. Everyone I've had on so far with the conversation, we've all done that. It'll come back. We'll give it a minute. We can edit this out.
Yeah, that's editing. Ooh, great thing. What was I talking about before?
Nothing in nature goes to waste.
Before that.
Don't shoot it in the head.
Oh, yeah. No, I still don't got it.
I was going to say, I wanted to say thank you very much for providing the tannerite and giving me that first experience of like, it was like blowing out the candles of a birthday cake. It's like you spent the time, you got a good tool. Does it work? And it's like, all right, here's the money shot. Can you really make this work? And then to take the time to make the shot and then to see this explosion at the end of it. And it's very cool.
You need to multiply that feeling by about 20 million.
Wow.
Because there's thrill seekers out there all the time, and I'm not one of them, but I've not experienced anything more heart-stopping and heart-pounding than having a deer walk out in front of you within range and then taking that deer.
Right.
It is such an adrenaline dump. I remember my very first deer that I killed with my bow. I'm not joking here when I say I couldn't stand up for 10 minutes, and my hand was shaking for a good 30 minutes after that. I mean, it's just that much of an adrenaline rush.
Holy moly.
It's hard to explain. And even just seeing a deer walk out that doesn't know you're there, and it could be not one you're even going to shoot, but knowing that you could, and just seeing this wild animal just feed 20 yards in front of you, it's a crazy feeling. It's a fun feeling.
Yeah.
And one of the other, back to hunters' experience and enjoyment of hunting, is getting into the woods before the daybreak.
Right.
You're sitting there, you're in the dark, you're just kind of letting things settle, and then the sun starts coming up, you start hearing the birds, you start seeing the squirrels run around. I hate squirrels, by the way. You'll come to appreciate this. But you feel the woods come alive, and it's a beautiful thing. You see the sunrise a lot of times, so it's a beautiful experience to see what creation is, and it's this perfect ecosystem of how it's supposed to be, and we're in it.
I know. It's amazing. Yeah, I wonder why I feel when you explain it like that, you're like, okay, well, that makes more sense. But But why are there people, I don't know, maybe this might be something we shouldn't talk about, but how is it even possible that somebody could look at a hunter and just go, you're not an ethical person? Yeah, because this is basically, I'll say this statement. I think if you eat meat and you don't think hunting is ethical, you've got something switched up in your head.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree, and there's a level, and there are some animal rights activists that know the research and they're very passionate about, and that's fine. I got no problem with that if you believe in something that passionately, wholeheartedly. But when it comes to the level of demeaning and harassing someone versus the thing,
right?
And that's where a lot of people cross the line with that. Is you can say, I don't believe in hunting, I think animals deserve to live, blah blah blah, but when it crosses the line of the hunter is a bad person,
right?
Well, they're only doing what they believe is right, and
they're feeding their family most likely.
There are people that their year-round meat consumption comes from what they kill.
Dude, I can tell you that I've met at least 10 people out here since we do live in the middle. Oh, no. That's okay.
We were going to edit that anyway. Do we know where it stopped?
Well, this is still recording. We're recording again. I could just pop in some
other stuff.
Yeah.
Tannerite.
Tannerite. We'll put it there, right? I totally lost what I was saying. That's why I updated that camera.
It didn't work.
I guess not. Yeah, no, I updated it and I did everything. I did some research and tried to fix it. And I guess that's the other podcast. We had the same problem. It would just stop recording.
That's not cool.
No, it's not cool. We were talking about harassing hunters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude, I had 10 people I know here who, like, they literally hunt and they feed their family with it. Like, they're not going out there like, dude, I met one guy who doesn't even like it. But he literally does it because he knows he's got to feed his family.
And there are ways you can do it where it is economically cheaper to do this stuff than to buy this meat.
Yep.
Plus, you get the added benefit of it actually being healthier for you.
Yeah, I do think it's healthier. I think if you were to common sense look at it, like, man, I think anybody could say once you get hired into like any kind of job, you get to see what's going on behind the scenes of that job, and you're like,
how the sausage is made per se.
Yeah, you know, like if you ever worked in a kitchen, you're like, wow, this is maybe I'm not going to eat here anymore. Or like, you know, you go to anytime I've ever worked a job, I go in there and I look around and I think to myself, this is not what I thought it was going to be like. I can't believe this is actually operational right now and that things are actually working. And I could pretty much say that for almost every job I've been in. I can only assume from my experience that that's exactly the way it would be in like a farm where they're growing animals or raising animal husbandry. Like, it's just like, I could only imagine. Anyway, things I don't want to do is I don't want to stand up and for people to think that I'm anything else but like the human being trying to do my best. You know, and I'm going to make mistakes. And I don't want to change the public eye of like what hunting is. I'm not standing up or having this conversation with you in any attempt to like change anybody's mind. Really, the main reason why I talk about this stuff or like have people on and talk about whatever is to really help other people see just other people's point of view. And one of the things, like, as I'm getting into hunting, to me, it's a very important thing. And I think if more people were more intimate with the food they eat, either growing it, hunting it, becoming a part of it, I think the world would be a better place.
Well, one thing that, especially in the last 10 years, is when you really think about everybody, for the most part, the general idea is I'm going to go to school, I'm going to go to this university, I'm going to get this office job, I'm going to progress through the ranks, and I'm going to be the best person I can be.
Right.
But then when you really think about it, in a end time scenario, who is going to be the breadwinners? The blue collar jobs. So everyone's going to come to the blacksmiths, the hunters, the mechanics,
right?
The jobs that nobody really wants, but it's the jobs that have been around the longest in the history of mankind.
Right.
And it's something that, like you were saying, we've lost that connection to who we were and to what as a principal foundation of how we got here is through all those things.
Yeah.
And one of my friends is a blacksmith.
That's awesome. Holy crap.
Yes, and it's something that I've looked at and I was like, I kind of understand the basic principles, and I would really, really enjoy doing this. It costs a crap ton of money to get invested in something like that. But it's one of those things where I'd like to learn how to do this, because this could come in really handy.
Yeah.
But then I think there are those people that are, I think anybody can learn whatever they want to learn. But there are those people with musicians that are clearly gifted to be able to play easier than I could learn to do that.
Right.
So I think there's a place for people that, in specific genres like that, like, this is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm really, really good at with minimal effort. And that's just who they are.
Interesting. So what was the other thing you wanted to bring up?
So this is a concept I've been thinking about for a while now, is radical honesty.
Oh.
Yeah. I told you it's a little bit of the deep end.
Yeah, no, that's great, though. I dig it.
So I think if you would ask anybody, they would say one of the hallmarks of a good person is they're honest. Generally speaking, this person, they're honest. Yeah. They don't lie to you. They're a good person.
Right.
And yet so much of our conversations are built upon lies from when we first start. Like, good morning, how are you?
I don't care.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
That's potentially just a white lie, but it's a lie regardless. So I've often wondered and personally, I try to be as honest a person as I can, radically honest with somebody. And that's not going up and say, hey, I think you're an idiot or whatever. If they ask me, I'm going to tell them.
Yeah, okay.
Because I that's what I want personally.
Right, yeah, totally.
I want to know exactly what someone. If I ask a question, I want the 100% truth.
Totally.
It's hard to do though, because if everyone's not on that same level of honesty, when you say, "Hey, how are you today?" "Oh, this is a crappy day," and blah blah blah. I wish I would have stayed in bed. Well, that's the truth.
Right.
But, he's just in a bad mood. So one of the things I've wondered is, what would a 24-hour period of worldwide radical honesty bring?
Oh, man.
And like I said, it's not something where you would go and just spill your every desire to someone. I just want to be honest with you. And
right.
But it's, if someone asks a question, any question, and we're forced to answer truthfully, 100% honesty, what would that look like?
Oh, man.
There's a couple of things, in my opinion. And this kind of goes back to, I know you've talked about the whole yin-yang thing, opposite.
Yeah.
You have to equal it out. I honestly think there would be a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
I think people generally have love in their heart for other people. And I'm not talking about the mushy type love, right, but just general love for somebody else, that they want what's best for them. And if they ask, hey, this such and such whatever, the answer would be, I care about you.
Right.
But then you got that other side where people are living the lie.
Yeah.
They're projecting who they think somebody else wants them to be.
Right.
And so once that bubble would be burst, would it be the one that's projecting who they're not, or would it be the one who's seeing something that's not true? I wonder who would be hurt the most in that.
Oh, man. I would assume with as many people that are, if we could get the whole entire world, I think it would be a mix of both. Both sides would, you would definitely see a lot of interesting scenarios. I don't know which ones would take priority. I think, honestly, more often than not, I think what you're saying is true with there would be a lot of love and understanding and community building that I do think is lacking a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, go ahead.
I honestly think that would be significantly more higher percentage than the bad.
I think so. I agree.
So you would be able to take that good, because everyone is expressing what their love for people, and it would spread. I'm not saying you're going to have world peace because of that, but
right.
I think it would be interesting to see, at least. And so I try to live as honestly as I can every day. But like I said, it's hard sometimes because you can't be honest with just questions that are asked without somebody else understanding the purpose of where you're coming from with that.
Right. I think that also takes a little bit of tact. Like, say you are having a bad day. I think there is a way to say that without being, because I being a person, and you work with people too, so you probably get a lot of that small talk a lot. And I get a lot of that as a magician because I think if you work with people, it's inevitable. And then sooner or later, you just start thinking about it. There is like a way to find that balance between honesty, but without being like a downer. Or like, I don't know, I'm also very suspicious of people who are like, I'm having a great day, it's the best day ever. It's like, are you really though?
Exactly.
It's like, are you crying inside right now and you're trying to hide?
Well, it's even, I've kind of taken it to where if I don't personally care about something, I'm not going to ask about it. Like, good morning, how are you today? Well, I don't personally care how you are today, so I'm not going to ask you because I don't want you to lie to me.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it is a lie or not, I don't want to not know that. So I'll tell you good morning, I'll be nice to you, but I don't really care how your day is progressing because it doesn't, it has no bearing on me. So what's the point?
I think you get that understanding from trying to be honest. So even if people were to just take a year or a day out of a year and to try that, their learning would go deeper. There's a saying by Tony Robbins, activity without purpose is the drain of your life force, or something like that. Like doing anything that does not line up with why you were here, or what you're choosing to be here, or what you're doing with your life. If you do things that don't line up with that, it's literally wasting. It's just wasting your life. And like, how many great conversations are we missing out because people are just like, oh, hey, how are you? I'm fine. Okay, thanks, bye.
Well, and there's so many people out there that don't know what they're supposed to do, though.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things where maybe there's this moment of realization where this is what I'm supposed to do. Otherwise, it's just kind of like ignorance is bliss type of thing. They know I'm here. I'm supposed to live. I'm supposed to do good, but without fully realizing what their abilities and purposes are supposed to be used for, it's kind of like paddling down the river.
Yeah, that's something that I do have a little bit of a problem with. I think that comes back down to our education system, what we're doing, how we're bringing people essentially into like a massive tribe. Like that's essentially what a city is. And like one of the things like Jennifer and I, when we were down in Orlando, was like, you know, the reason why we build cities is so more people can come together and so that we can achieve more together. Like more hands on a project, we all have to work less. But like going into Orlando, which maybe is, well, honestly, yeah, because Disney's there, but whatever.
Ugh.
It was, I don't like Disney World or Disney
I like Marvel, but not Disney.
So there was a lot, you know, there's more homeless people out in the city. You know, there's things that break down that in a smaller tribe don't. And that's one thing I was talking about with my buddy Chris. I said, so if we had like a group of like 30 people, we're out in the woods, you break your leg, we're not just going to leave you there. That'd be messed up, right? We're
not going hungry either.
Right. So let's say, you know, we would find something for him to do. Let's say that Chris can't hunt anymore. So let's say me and you were hunting. Well, Chris can do other things. Like let's say he completely lost a leg and he's just, or both legs, you know, making him a horrible hunter. We can't make a wheelchair out of wood. You know, we're talking like post-apocalyptic or pre-tribal situation. We always would, to throw away a human being and their potential to learn and to be a part of the tribe is it's not really something that happens in a smaller tribe situation. But then what happens when we become like this massive metropolitan city or metropolis with all these people? Now you see people on the side of the road and you're like, well, they're like a vagabond homeless person. It's like, well, something happened. I'm not saying that I have the answer, but like something happened that if the system was smaller, we wouldn't have that problem. Let's say let's say that person was sick in some way. In a small tribe, we would help that person. But in a bigger tribe, we're finding these reasons to break them off of our tribe and then to allow them to stay within the territory of the tribe and to bring the rest of the tribe down. So where is this this natural way that humans operate in a small tribe versus the way we operate in a larger tribe? There's this two operating systems, and where that changes and switches gears, I don't know. But it happened to me now. Where was I going with it? Yeah. Because what were you saying just a minute ago before I started?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either. It's a never-ending conversation.
The problem I see with that scenario, and that would bring that person, that vagabond person, that the other group would kind of distance themselves from, that is just like any other, where you're going to have certain people that doing it just because they're lazy.
Yes.
And you don't want the lazy person
in the tribe,
in your tribe, because they're just going to suck resources without.
Right.
So you tend to want to cut that whole genre of people off, because the lazy ones are bringing them down.
Yes. But so there's the opposite side of that, is that usually there wouldn't be so much of a lazy person in a tribal situation, because they know that if they screw over too much, there's only 30 eyes on you, you know, so
you're going to be a real vagabond.
You'll be ostracized, right? So like there isn't really a way for us to, as human beings in a city, the consequences of life and the way we treat people, how we get our food, how we interact with like our world, there's so many different cracks and crevices to fall in through, and to not be honest, not only with yourself but with other people. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why, dude, I was dying to get back to a city, because I moved up here and met Jennifer, and I was like, all right, gotta go, because I'm a city boy, you know. And I moved back down there, and after living here for like 2 years, I was like, I hate cities.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started.
I hate, dude, like they're.
I live in Live Oak, and it's not major by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
And I enjoy for the most part where I'm at, but my goal when I was looking for a house was to find 40 acres of woods that I could build a house in the middle of. So I don't want neighbors.
Fort Paul.
Exactly. If I want to go whiz in the backyard,
by all means.
Yeah. 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Nobody needs to be dude, that privacy is like, it's a beautiful thing, man.
I want people to come over that I want to come over, not someone who's looking over their fence off their trampoline.
Yeah, totally, man. And that's one of the things I was totally used to it and just didn't notice. And then moving out here, I was like, wow, my neighbors are actually really far. And then when we moved back, I was like, dude, I can't sing in my house the way I would as I'm making this record without my next door neighbors like
banging on the wall.
Yeah, like, what are you doing over there? Or potentially getting freaked out and be like, oh, I think he's like killing somebody. I don't know. There's just like, he's been like, there's
a satanic cult next door.
So, and then I realized, I was like, dude, I'm always being watched in a city. It doesn't matter where you go, what you're doing, someone's looking at you.
And not even a surveillance type of.
It's just people are just always around you. And I guess probably like as a magician, I'm always aware of like when people are looking at me. It becomes like this feedback loop. And I went out there and I just never noticed it before until I got a break from it. We lived there for a year, and right before our lease was up, I was like, I want to go back. And I don't want to live in a city ever again. Because when I met Jennifer, I was on my way up to Atlanta. I was going to go live in Atlanta, but then I met Jennifer and then stayed here. And then that's pretty much the rest of the story.
She ruined everything.
She ruined it all. Darn you, Jennifer. She's probably smiling somewhere out there.
There's pros and cons to anything, but for me, the cons far outweigh the pros of living in a city versus living in the country. Even Live Oak is like the country of cities.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And I really, really like this area, mainly because you can get, like we're out in the middle of nowhere. You have that option, but you're also pretty centrally located to 4 different
major cities.
Yeah, and you're an hour to an hour and 15 minutes away from literally anything you need.
Yep. So
to me, it's like the perfect intersect of country and being able to get whatever I want right away, because I'm pretty impatient.
Yeah, I've started not to like Valdosta though. There's certain things like I've learned like what Valdosta has to offer, and as I go up there, I'm just like, whenever I go there, I'm like, I'll just ride up to Valdosta and I'll get it. And I get there and I'm just like, why did I go to Valdosta? But then again, Gainesville and Jacksonville and Tallahassee
I can't stand Jacksonville.
I haven't been to Jacksonville in such a long time.
I really don't like
most of the time when I go out there, I'm just like working.
I went last Friday to the Jags preseason game, and I just don't like Jacksonville, the city.
I think my windows are down.
You should go put those up.
Did you roll my windows up? Oh, I love it.
They were rolled up.
Oh, you're She ruins everything, I swear. She's the worst.
I was leaving hometown for a reason.
But yeah, dude, I guess we could wrap it up because I think we've touched some pretty good talk. Unless you want to keep going.
We can do whatever, man.
I was gonna say, well, what time is it?
It's 4:45.
Oh, I gotta get something to eat because you told me about those redneck
hillbilly egg rolls.
Hillbilly egg rolls, man. Yeah, we gotta go check those out. But dude, I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you today for helping me sight in my rifle, taking the time to teach me some more about the process and sharing what you know with other people and becoming a part of the never-ending conversation.
Heck yeah, man. This was fun.
Yeah, we'll do it again soon.